Hey everybody, this is your girl Dale Lynn, better known as Queen Dales. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about why I gained or how I gained 150 pounds or so and how I got up to 300 pounds. Yeah, I got up to 302 pounds. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. On the weight loss journey, one of the things that I've realized is that in order to keep the weight off, I had to realize why I gained the weight in the first place. I had to work through some of those issues that I was having with food to understand, how I got to 302 pounds. I think the biggest challenge for me in the beginning of the weight loss journey was I thought it was all physical. I thought it was going to be just working out, eating right, and then I'd be good. Until I started working out, eating right, and then I realized during the journey, I was crying about everything. Like the first 6 months of my journey, I cried almost every day. And I was like, what is wrong with me? I'm not an emotional person. Like, what's going on? And I realized that I was like taking off layers of issues that I had been dealing with for years and didn't even realize that those were contributing factors to, the weight gain. So I think that it's very important on your weight loss journey before you even begin to start it, just kind of do a self-examination or a self-check is why am I here? Why am I in this place? How did I get here? And I think the how did I get here will help me realize how do I get it off. I narrowed it down to 5 reasons why I believe I got up to 302 pounds. Reason number 1. I believe I had an unhealthy relationship with food. A lot of people have an unhealthy relationship with food, whether or not you're 100 pounds overweight or whether or not you're not even really overweight. We all kind of struggle with, our relationship with food. So food plays a huge role, in my life and in the life of my family. I just remember growing up, when there was a death in the family, people would come over by the droves and just bring food over. And so when you're grieving, what do? You eat because you don't want to think about everything that you're dealing with, so you grieve with food. Wedding celebrations, the food is the highlight of the event. In my family, we're not really concerned about who the DJ is because we can make up our own music. We can dance, we can sing, we can do all of that. We just want to know who cooked the food. Those unhealthy relationships is really what started those triggers. Number 2. There's a scripture in the Bible, I think it's Proverbs 13:12, and it says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And basically that scripture just talks about, when you feel hopeless, your heart is sick. And for me, feeling hopeless in life was really what just kind of got me into a negative place of just not really caring about my health and just, eating. For me, that hopelessness came from being around 19, 20 years old when you're really learning how to find yourself and learning who you are. Maybe a little bit before that, I was maybe 17 when that big feeling of hopelessness, set in. That first time I felt hopeless. Of course, you have like your first loves and you go through breakups and all that kind of stuff. So I had my little first heartbreak around that time. But then around that time as well, I wanted to go to school. I wanted to go to college away from home. And I wouldn't say I was sheltered, but I'm a PK. For those who don't know, that's pastor's kid or preacher's kid. At the time when I was a senior in high school, one of my sisters got pregnant and she was only 18. And that was very hard for my parents. It was very hard for the community that we serve in as pastors or the religious community. So when she got pregnant, it was like the worst thing she could have ever done, in other people's minds, because they were looking at my parents like, well, you're preaching to us about this and about that, but look at your daughter, she's having a baby out of wedlock. And because of that, that put pressure on me being the child right underneath her. I think they were afraid. They were afraid to let me go. And my mom and I have since talked about that incident. But so I remember going to them and sitting down and telling my parents, I want to go to this school. And I just remember them telling me, no, we don't think you're ready. And I was like, what? Like, it's a Christian school. It's a small private university. It's only a few hours away. It's in Dallas. We live here in Houston. Couldn't believe when they told me no. That was my dream. That's what I wanted. I didn't see my life going in any other direction. And they took that away from me. Now, of course, I was being super dramatic then, not realizing that, God has plans for all of us. And my plan for myself was not as big as or grand as his plan for me. But I just recall feeling hopeless. Sometimes when you have tunnel vision, you don't see anything else but your dream. And because of that, you start not to care. You start to feel like, well, what does this matter or what does that matter? So hopelessness plays a huge part in the reason why I feel like I gained that weight. It started this spiral of just bad decision making, because I felt like, well, what I wanted to do with my life, that choice or that option was taken away from me. Number 3, the third reason why I feel like I gained over 150 pounds, and not just gained 150 pounds, y'all, I did this in a short period of time. Like, it's not an accomplishment or nothing, but I gained all that weight within like a year and a half. And the third reason why is because of life stressors. This is big for all of us. Like, no matter how old or young you are, we all have life stressors, things in life that stress us out. For me, it was being 20 years old, new marriage, new baby, no job. Yeah, I got married when I was 20, and that in itself is a huge stressor. And then the next following year after I got married, my daughter was due on my wedding anniversary of my first year marriage. So having a new baby, not knowing anything about parenting from just other than what I saw from my parents, and then making a decision to stay at home with my daughter was a decision my husband and I kind of both made together, but it really wasn't a choice. It kind of felt like I didn't have a choice because childcare was so expensive. So it was like, well, you'll be the one to stay home with her. And so choosing that was very difficult for me to stay home with her. I loved all of my kids, but at 20 years old, 21, having a newborn baby, just sitting at home all day was not it for me. I felt trapped. I felt miserable because I felt like I didn't have any purpose. I mean, of course, as a mom, any moms out there, you love your baby, but seriously, like, just sitting at home looking at a 2-month-old all day, you're just like, what am I supposed to do with you? She looking at me, I'm looking at her, we both lost. I just felt like I didn't have any meaning to my life other than taking care of this baby. So that was a huge stressor for me, and that's really when the weight started to creep up. Being at home all day, not having any social interactions. 2021, that's when life really is starting for you. You wanna go out, you wanna experience life with your friends. I didn't do any of that. Number 4, the fourth reason why I feel like I gained the weight is because lack of movement. Being at home all day, sitting down, not doing anything. I went from working full time, making my own money, being independent, to literally just being home with the baby all day long by myself, not doing anything, not even going to the mall and walking around with the baby in the stroller. Of course, I would take her to the park and do things like that with her, but guess what I would do? I'd sit down. And even when I had my second child, I began to rely on my first baby to play with the second baby. So I really didn't do anything. I just kind of did the house chores, kept everything clean, and sat on my behind all day. And so when you are not moving and you're not working, or even if you are working and you're sitting at a desk job, it's a lack of movement. And so your body starts to kind of adjust to that, and you'll start seeing those pounds creep up. Number 5, the last reason why I think I gained over 150 pounds and got up to 302 pounds probably ties all of the reasons into one, and that's anxiety and depression. Once I went through all of these different life changes, I realized, wow, I'm depressed. And how I really realized that I was depressed, my husband was working at our townhomes as a leasing agent, and he literally just had to walk to work. He would walk home during his lunch break to take care of our daughter, because at one point I couldn't get out of the bed. I was so depressed. My anxiety had gotten so bad, I couldn't get out of bed. I was so detached from life because I allowed those life stressors, I allowed the hope deferment, and I allowed just the bad relationship with food to get the best of me. And I ended up really depressed. I had to go to the doctor, be put on medication for my anxiety. My anxiety was so bad. Little things triggered my anxiety. Bills not getting paid on time would trigger my anxiety to where I would go into a panic and I would have anxiety attacks. So when my sister died, that was a huge trigger, and I started to see that anxiety pattern all over again. But by then I had a huge wake-up call, which is her death, to not allow me to spiral down anymore or any further than I had already gone. I always say her death saved my life, because had she not been such a huge part of my life, I probably would have spiraled down, even further into a cycle of depression. But those major 5 things are what played a huge role in me gaining all of this weight. And you're probably saying, okay, what does that have to do with the weight loss? Well, if I didn't recognize why I gained the weight, number 1, I would have never lost the weight. And number 2, I wouldn't have kept it off. It's been 4 years since I started my journey. And so I would not have been where I am now without identifying the reasons why I got to the place that I got to. It's very important for you to do the same thing. Have a self-awareness moment to just figure out why I'm in the place that I'm in. And in order to make those changes, I have to come to grips with reality that I need help. Again, you might not have gained a lot of weight. You might have gained a whole bunch of weight. You might just say, you know what, I feel unhealthy. I feel bad on the inside. Maybe I don't have a bad relationship with food, but maybe I do have some issues that I need to uncover to get me back to a healthier place. So I want to encourage you to do a self-assessment and to realize why you are where you are. In my next video, I'll share with you some practical tips and ways that I have lost 145 pounds and have kept it off. Stay tuned for that video. Bye.